It's not fun right now in Big D in Dallas. They're watching some soft football in terms of what they're seeing at Jerry World. Anything at AT&T Stadium is a boat race in the wrong direction. They're getting laughed at. And it's same old Cowboys where they continue to leave us, the general public, the football fan, thinking good, not great. Back-to-back-to-back regular seasons of 12 wins. Jerry Jones finally pays Dak Prescott. Finally pays CeeDee Lamb. After disappointment of, not paying them and still not seeing the results in the playoffs. The Cowboys are a playoff team, but they're not playoff worthy if they're playing at home. 47-9 was the final score yesterday to Detroit, where they were 0-5, looking for some payback. They go and get it, and then some. I mean, they drum them. The 4 losses that we've seen now, 4 consecutive losses for Dallas at home if you go back to even the Green Bay game in the postseason last year. Final score combined is 139-60. With what has been a high-powered Dallas offense and a really good, stout defense, led by Micah Parsons, who's banged up. Defensively for Dallas, plenty of holes. Plenty. They can't get off the field. In fact, they give up the lead, and once they give up the lead, the offense is trailing. It's not like they need a run game. They can't go to the run game late. They're trailing by so much at home. But Jerry Jones doesn't really do anything in the offseason. Just goes through the draft, and they try to run it back. By and large, he's been just fine acquiring talent, except for this offseason where they didn't address anything because they claimed the salary cap didn't allow them to. That's because they didn't extend Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb or anyone earlier than when they did to allow them some cap room and not have to take everything moving forward as a possibility of dead cap space whenever Dak Prescott, if they went into the season without a contract, would potentially be in a lame duck year. They have a lame duck head coach right now in Mike McCarthy. The total vibe of Dallas is what it is. It's chaos. It's always going to be like that. There's always going to be all the pomp and circumstance, all the hype. America's team, they're back and they're going for it again. But what they're really going for is giving their fans more disappointment. On Jerry Jones's 82nd birthday yesterday, he's overlooking from the clouds, overseeing what is the worst home loss that Dallas has had since Jerry took over the team in 89. And yet I see a different Jerry Jones, even with the patience of what Jerry Jones has shown with Jason Garrett and certainly with Mike McCarthy. He says he's not doing anything to switch up what they're doing. They had Kellen Moore. I believe at the time, Kellen Moore had a number 2 overall offense, and they were putting up points. Mike McCarthy gave up play calling, then he got it back, and now it's, it is a circus of what they're doing offensively because they don't have any true firepower outside of CeeDee Lamb. They got speed. They don't have the same type of moxie that we see in Kansas City, though, with the role players. Dallas can be shut down. And what you do is you have your players show up and show out. You gain the lead, and they're done. I'm listening to a handful of former players now, NFL analysts, say that they're a bit weak at certain positions. They're chasing the scoreboard at home. They're feeling the pressure. I just say they're soft right now. There's plenty of pressure that goes with playing with star on your helmet. I don't see a very tough team mentally. I like what Dak Prescott stands up and says post-game at the podium. But at 3-3, they're only a game out of first place in their division. But yet I don't see a division leader in Dallas. I see a team that's going to be chasing, much like they're chasing the scoreboard. And I guess that's maybe a good thing for them because they don't need to be hosting home games right now in the postseason. They need to go on the road. They're much better on the road. They got lapped at home. What did they do? They went back and they won gritty, tough, physical games on the road. And they come back home against a team in Detroit that's really cranking it up. And they can't meet that mark. They can't raise the bar whenever the moment is there. Disappointment's there for them. Terrible news with Detroit, though, losing Aiden Hutchinson at the broken fibia and tibia. And I saw this firsthand with Marcus Mariota in Jacksonville, just 2017, I believe. And, you know, it's a gruesome injury. It's not fun. It's immediate surgery, and he's done for the year. Now, when you see a break like this, it looks like it could be career-threatening. It's not as bad as what it looks. He'll be back in roughly 10 to 11 months, like NFL ready in 10 to 11 months. This is a Detroit team, though, that just lost the heartbeat of their team, of their locker room. Jason Garrett described Hutchinson as the player that is the symbol of everything that they have been building and are about. I totally agree with him. And I think much like we saw with Aaron Rodgers last year with the Achilles tear, we're going to see Aiden Hutchinson around on the sidelines. We'll see him with this team because he means a ton to that team. He's not just the best defensive player that they have. He's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. We had 5 sacks earlier this year in the first game. That's a huge loss for them. And that's, I know, stating the obvious. But he's the difference in a win or a loss in the postseason. He could be the difference by not having him, whether or not they win a game late that affects the quarterback in the postseason that sends them to a Super Bowl. And it's unfortunate because they have everything going for them there. Top to bottom, I believe they have the best roster in the NFL. But the best roster in the NFL just lost their best player. And while they're going to continue to win, when it really matters in the one-game seasons, they lost the guy that can help them win that one game. Dallas doesn't have that dude right now. They do in the regular season. They don't have the guy that is stepping up and taking over the game. And that's the difference in a 12-game regular season winner and a potential Super Bowl threat for an 82-year-old Jerry Jones. In my mind, look, this is exactly what I think. And maybe I'm odd here. I'm sitting here going, if I'm 82 years old, I have a franchise worth $10 billion. What am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm on borrowed time, just to be blunt. I made it to 82. I want that one more rush of going and getting one. That one more. I'm known for the team of the 90s. I'm known more about being the owner of the team that currently has an analyst in Michael Irvin, that has Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football, that is still a team that right now wishes they had a backfield that had half the star power and skill set of Emmitt Smith. Deion's the head coach. He's head coach of Colorado. Who knows, maybe he's the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going there. I don't believe it. My point, I'm going out, and I want to go out as America's team winner. And right now, they're not getting it done. But Jerry continues to run it back. He's got the star power. They don't have the star leader. And for whatever reason, Jerry's okay with it. The patience has really surprised me. Davey, your take on what we saw yesterday. I mean, this was a shocker to me. And this is even after the 3 straight home losses, because Dallas wins in the regular season, and you would think after a while you come out pissed off. Now, Detroit's coming off a bye. Nonetheless, it is a potential playoff rematch coming up. But also, if you're gunning for a number 1 or number 2 seed, this is probably the team that you need to beat head-to-head to do so.
You know, looking at this game as a whole, going into it, I thought it was going to be a shootout. Turns out that wasn't the case. Now
It should have been. It had to be. Yeah.
The offense for the Lions was there. I will say I enjoyed watching the Lions. I think they had 3 or 4 separate plays where they were lining up or trying to get linemen to score. I mean, Dan Skipper at one point was lined out wide at wide receiver. They were having a good time. Now they won the battle, but going back to Hutchinson, it seems like they lost the war. That was a brutal injury. Kind of reminded me more of what you've seen in the MMA whenever it comes to trying to like block a kick and it just snaps the leg. It was rough. One of those where rightfully they didn't show the replay on television, but definitely just a brutal loss for the Lions. But it's one of those where now it's a moment where you're going to see the rest of the team step up. And I think Dan Campbell.
You think so, though?
I think so. Dan Campbell does a great job. And that's the type of coach that the Cowboys honestly need. They need a Dan Campbell-esque coach. And the closest thing to that right now that's out on the market is Mike Vrabel. I'm really interested to see what they do after this season. But Hud, as it relates to Jerry Jones, I'm right there with you. I mean, the guy is 82. Father Time is ticking, and he doesn't seem like – he seems like he's become more docile in his old age. I know you've had the opportunity to kind of just see him interact in public where it's not so much in front of the cameras, it's behind the scenes. What's your takeaway been whenever you've seen that version of Jerry Jones?
Jerry knows exactly what he wants. He's a stickler for the details of how he wants to go about things. He knows he has a collection of talent. Think about your favorite NFL team right now. Whoever it might be. The trio of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. Compare that trio, be fair with it, to yours. Ownership-wise, would your owner trade that trio for the one that he or she may have? My guess is a vast majority of the league would. Look at some of the quarterback situations across the league.
It's rough.
And he just decided to pay the guy. But the way they waited, this is where he screwed up. The patience of waiting on the contracts, where you save yourself money by doing the deal early, not super early, but a year earlier, because especially with the quarterbacks, because it's only going to go up. Dak Prescott is making $60 million annually on average a year. If you do the deal last year, you're saving yourself $8 million per year. You've got last year, Ryan Tannehill made $40 million for the Tennessee Titans. At the time, it looked like Ryan Tannehill's making $40 million. It's still hard to believe that the quarterbacks are getting this per season. But when you compare that deal now to what quarterbacks are getting and producing losses, not wins, you see where it's a lot of money. I'm calling it a bargain for the NFL right now at the position. That's where the patience is also not paying off. That's where it's detrimental. And Mike McCarthy right now, I know he won a Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy right now, Davey, I say you can find Mike McCarthy coaches.
Yeah, that's not hard.
That's not hard to find, and that's why I think the patience has been interesting just throughout. Dan Quinn was there. He was your defensive coordinator. They're missing him greatly. He's off and coaching a solid team right now in Washington.
Yeah, with Mike McCarthy winning that Super Bowl, he had prime Aaron Rodgers. I look at Dak Prescott, and let me know what you think of this comparison, but I just kind of see Kirk Cousins. I love Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is fun, but whenever it really comes down to it, at the end of the day, he's not going to get you far in the postseason. Kirk has 1 postseason win in his career. Dak is currently sitting at 2 postseason wins, and I don't feel confident when the playoffs roll around. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that as to why Dallas hasn't been successful in the postseason. But, when you have a quarterback taking up such a large chunk of the cap percentage, and that guy doesn't have the it factor at the end of the day, you put yourself in a tough spot. While it's still great to win, it's just I never see a situation where Dak Prescott's going to take that team to the Super Bowl and win it, no matter how good his defense is. I just don't believe he has that it factor.
And again, I'm looking at it through the lens of how old am I as the owner? Mm-hmm. Okay, this by using the cap excuse right now, I'm saying, and not trying to free up some of that cap space now, and instead saying the cap's only going to go up astronomically. It's going to jump up to a big number starting next year. I think it goes up like $30 million or something is what the projection is. And it even went above the projection this past offseason because of the new TV deals and streaming deals that are coming in. The players get 49.5% of all of that towards the cap. It's almost like, the cap's going up. We can absorb these contracts now and move forward and actually make acquisitions. But again, that's also sacrificing this offseason of not making crucial moves and helping your team. And it's at the running back spot. They let Tony Pollard walk. Tennessee basically gave Tony Pollard the same amount of money that Derrick Henry received in Baltimore, more or less. Minus $1 or $2 million. And Jerry Jones is saying they couldn't afford Derrick Henry. They could have made something work there. They could have made something work. And that's going back to waiting on Dak. If you do the deal with Dak earlier, you can then restructure and you can maneuver money around to open up space, even if you didn't have it, in order to bring in Derrick Henry. Baltimore just did it, by the way. They paid their quarterback, and they just paid a running back that's leading the league in rushing yards.
I would be frustrated if I'm a Dallas fan because this is the time where if you were going to go all in, it would have been this offseason. Because you look at the rest of the NFC or the NFC East, you know the Giants are struggling. They've had some woes. The Eagles were riding a terrible losing streak to end out the season.
Yeah, they're not right.
No, there's definitely problems there, and no one foresaw the Commanders coming out and playing like they have with Jaden Daniels. So whenever you were looking at the odds, I probably should have looked this up before the show, but it had to be overwhelming, probably like minus 200 for the Cowboys to win the NFC East at the beginning of the season.
But it's not even about winning the East. Their competition, you're looking at it yesterday in Detroit. Their competition's Green Bay. Their competition's really the NFC North in the postseason. If they're running it back, run it back and do what you did. If you run it back, you're thinking 12 wins because that's what you've done the 3 previous seasons, right?
Yeah.
And you're right about Philly. You got Sirianni yelling at his own fans yesterday. Yeah, to me, Dallas is in a better spot than Philly with the way they've been going internally.
And even when Dallas gets healthy, I still don't. That's not going to solve their problems.
No, it hasn't. It's been the same old problems. And again, Dan Quinn not being there is a huge factor. They lost a bit of the moxie of what that defense was about. And at home, I can't explain it. Can't explain why they're a totally different team at home. Jim Harbaugh had maybe the quote of the year so far. He's had a couple of them. He had another one in regards to what happened yesterday. The scary situation, he goes into the tent. He's a head coach, just walks in the middle of the game, walks into the blue tent, came back in the second half and coached more. But it was due to a irregular heartbeat. And he's had this before. His quote about this was, let me get everything going here. He said, everything ended up turning out to be okay. The doctors checked me out and got it back into a normal rhythm. So came back, it's the heart, so you take it seriously. He's 60 years old. He has dealt with this heart flutter, I believe is how they referred to it as. And he had a procedure like 25 years ago or something due to this. So there was another one. It was the Super Bowl year, the year they went to the Super Bowl. 2012 is when he suffered another one. And then he felt this again during the game. And he said, just like 2012, it was during pregame warmups. I kind of started feeling, is what he said. And then here's his line. I'm 2-0 in arrhythmias. 2-0 in arrhythmias. Again, he could they pulled John Harbaugh out of the post-game presser for Baltimore, who won a great game over the Commanders, because there was an update on his brother. Just left the podium yesterday. Justin Herbert, he said that Harbaugh had told the team Saturday night that he was kind of feeling off. So they had a contingency plan for him just to leave the sideline even though I'm sure he didn't bring up the fact he might just leave the sideline. I think it might be like, hey, if this doesn't get better overnight, I may not be at the game. Here's our plan. And he certainly wanted to tell his quarterback and Justin Herbert, who's back. The quote was, he was really excited for the game. He said blood was flowing and he was excited. I thought everything was good to go, and that definitely something he should get checked out. He's a tough guy, though. So, again, scary. Yesterday at the Titans game, you had a member of the chain gang tackle on the sideline. His leg gets rolled up on, and immediately full air cast, taken in for emergency surgery immediately right after that. Hope everything's good with him. I got trucked once on the sideline reporter. Delaney Walker destroyed me, trucked me. And for whatever reason, thankfully, I was hit square, like so square, I ended up having a very small bruise on my hip, and I broke my pencil that was in my back pocket. I held on to the mic, held on to my notes. I was good to go. No, they did not check me for a concussion. They did not ask me to recite the alphabet backwards, which I wouldn't have been able to do. I would have failed the concussion test, I guess. That's what they were doing then. They're not doing that now. And, yeah, I was allowed to stay on the sideline and keep going. But the video is worse than how I felt, to be honest with you, David. You ever been, run over or trucked on the sideline while you're either at Neyland Stadium or a high school game or something?
No, I've never been in that situation.
Not the best.
I did have a great view of the guy, unfortunately, that got injured. The ball boy is what they were referring to him as yesterday with Levis. And, I just don't think that guy – I mean, I know it's one of those situations where even if you see it coming,
you can't get out of the way.
You're not getting out of the way.
I'm telling you, being on the sidelines, Davey, and you've seen this, the game in the NFL, when they say the speed of the game is different, it is different watching on TV and seeing it on the sideline and how fast. In my case, Mike Mularkey's the head coach. He's standing at the line to gain for where he – not the line to gain, excuse me, where he wants Delaney to make his cut. I didn't know this at the time. Mularkey's straight ahead of me, blocking my view. If I wanted to look ahead, I could see the line of scrimmage to my left. Delaney makes his cut, and as he makes his cut, Mike steps back to the right towards the coach's area of the sideline. Delaney makes his catch straight into me. You cannot, and by the way, if I move, you're bunched in there. It is. Other people, I'm surprised how many people they let on the sideline.
Yeah, I am. I mean, we had a similar incident a couple of years back in New Orleans. I think it was at New Orleans. I know it definitely featured the Saints because Alvin Kamara took out a chain gang member, and I remember seeing that guy's leg hanging off on the side. It was another rough situation like that. I'm curious if they try to address. It seems like these situations are becoming more and more common.
I see it, but it is, but. David, let's just be honest. It's not affecting the field. It's not affecting the superstars on the field.
Oh, no. Well, that was the other thing about this one. They had to get the cart, but they moved that guy who got injured yesterday off pretty quickly and had game resuming very fast, in my opinion. I mean, you could tell they got him over there, and then the cart came during the next media timeout. So it wasn't like they went to a timeout just to get this guy on the cart now. No, it was like, no, this was within the regular flow of the game. It's all right, now we can bring the cart over to get this guy out of here.
If you get injured like that on the practice field, teams normally have 3 different practice fields. You just move the practice to the other field. That's the way they wanted to resume the game when Hamlin had his heart issue. Remember this?
Yep.
They wanted to resume the game then. So, yeah, I mean, screw the ball boy. And I'm not saying that from my vantage point. But, I mean, I certainly am saying that I've been hit on the side. They're not going to stop the game for me. There's Hutton down there. He should have been able to get out of the way. This dude's like, he was an older guy, was he not?
Looked to be the case.
Yeah, I hope everything's good with him. Everything's not good with Georgia. We know that from off the field and all the arrests. Kirby Smart says he doesn't remember shoving Mississippi State quarterback Michael Van Buren, who I want to call Martin, Michael Van Buren, on the sideline during the game. Apparently just has amnesia with this. Here is Kirby Smart shoving Van Buren, where he says he's going after the defensive coordinator, but shoves right there out of the way. almost into the ref, or does he actually do it into the ref? I mean, it's something that when you see it, you're like, is that Kirby? What's he doing? What's he doing? Here's Kirby Smart post game, acting like what we just saw, he doesn't remember.
Kirby, on the last Mississippi State drive, it looks like you made contact with their quarterback. Like, it looks like you were trying to maybe talk to an official about a call. Do you remember the incident, what happened, and what you were upset about with the official?
No, I think the play I was going after Schumann. I was trying to get Schumann's attention. We were trying to change personnel. And I think it's the play they came over on our sideline, and I'm trying to get Schumann's attention. But no, I don't really remember it.
I mean, to me, it is ridiculous that not just any head coach, Kirby Smart, is asked about this postgame. And it's pretty much just been swept over to the side now. How much did we talk about what was going on with Bama postgame at Tennessee? Or, we saw Omari shoving an Arkansas fan. We've got Thomas doing that, but yet we have Kirby Smart doing this with Georgia. Kirby Smart, the stickler for the details, the stickler who learned this from Nick Saban, who has this mantra: do simple better. Do simple better. Let's practice what we preach here. If I'm trying to get around somebody that's in my way because I'm going after my defensive coordinator on the sideline because I'm, heated, or I'm hot. Think about if you're at a bar and you're shoulder to shoulder, you're just shoving people out of the way, or are you going to take your hand and put it behind their back and then slip behind them and continue to scream at them, or whoever you're screaming at across the bar, screaming, trying to get their attention, trying to get Clay away from going the wrong direction from the restroom. Yeah, you're going to act normal. In a normal setting, you're not going to shove the opposing team's player where the play just happened and he's getting off the sideline and you're aware of everything. Kirby Smart, stickler for the details. This from a feature on SEC Network, Do Simple Better. And it's Kirby Smart. He's watching this footage of players at practice. You're going to hear Saban in this too. Players at practice that are coming in with their jerseys untucked, maybe their T-shirts untucked from their shorts, whatever it might be. You've got that. You're going to hear the voices of Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis in this as well, discussing how often and how detailed Kirby Smart is about something that Nick Saban was all about. Do simple better.
Coach, am I the only one that can see his shirt tail's not in?
Hey, Chauncey, tuck your shirt in so you look like everybody else. Solomon, like I tell the receivers every day, tuck your shirt in.
So what? A lot of shirt tails hanging out. Let's go.
Tuck your shirt in. Let's go.
Why do I tuck in my shirt? Why do I do this right? Why do I touch this line? Why do I do every little thing right? That's because it's supposed to keep a guy from making a dumbass decision.
A lot of times players think that's trivial, and the really smart players will ask, why is this important? It's important on 4th and 4 when we go hard count. I got to count on you not to jump off sides.
What we used to say, do simple better.
Do simple better.
So, little stuff like that, like, it could be the simplest of tasks, but you want to be elite at doing that. Like, even if it's just writing down your name, you want to make sure that you write down your name, be elite at that.
Yeah.
Making sure your J's curve the right way, and your O's, and you dot your I's and your last name.
I think it's the first step to growth is like, what can you accept that you didn't do? Because if you look inside and you didn't do something right, then that at least puts us one step closer to doing it right. If everybody did that, then we'd be a lot of steps closer.
Yeah, if everyone did that like you, Coach, if you did this. Listen to the Disney music behind that too, by the way. This is a reel on Facebook that was a part of this piece. First step of growth, if everyone does this. Do simple better. Why do we do this? So we don't make dumbass decisions. That was from Nick Saban. The SEC here should do simple better. Kirby Smart's the one that said, we're going to fine players out of their NIL. That's one of the things that they're going to do when players continue to speed at a high rate and get pulled over for reckless driving. When that happens again. Probably tomorrow. They need to fine Kirby Smart. Minimum. Everyone's talking suspension. These coaches don't even suspend their own players for this. So I don't expect Kirby Smart to be suspended for this. But I do expect something to happen. Because why would we rail on these players for doing this postgame when the head coach, not just the head coach, the voice of current college football coaches, the guy who wins multiple national championships, the guy who leads the Georgia Bulldogs back to prominence. He's the one doing it. He's setting the example. And it's also within a program that has a big issue with off-the-field messes and problems and arrests. They just do. And everyone now is starting to pick up on it. Good, because it's been swept under the rug. But the problem is, this will be swept under the rug. And it shouldn't be. Is it minor in the grand scheme of things? Sure. Minor in terms of result. But in terms of optics, it's ridiculous. It's unacceptable. And Kirby needs to do simple better. And the simplest aspect of this is, yes, I remember it. I don't have amnesia. And I'm aware of what's going on. The dude knows if a shirt is untucked. You better believe he knew that a Mississippi State quarterback was on the sideline getting back to the field of play. Do better. So you don't make dumbass decisions, as Nick Saban would tell you.